Welcome, everyone. We're just going to wait for a few minutes while everybody populates. Hey, Sebastian Laurent. We're going to get started in exactly 1 minute to give everybody time to populate as Zoom lets people in one at a time. Hello, Aiden, Robert, and Ahmed. All right, welcome. I'm so excited to welcome y'all to how to mitigate security threats with CrowdSec and Trefik. There's a lot of information we'll be sharing today, and I think it's going to be right up everyone's alley. I'm going to start by welcoming you and introducing you to some of the features you can play with, and then we will pass you off to our lovely experts. If you have a question today, we are really excited to answer it. Please feel free to throw it in the Q&A section. This is a different button than the chat, and you should even be able to upvote questions should there be one that you really want to make sure makes it to the top. I am going to be handing the floor over to Sebastian Blot and Hamza Esseli. They are CrowdSec core developers who will be teaching us how we can use CrowdSec in our Trefik setup in order to protect ourselves and also contribute to the rest of the crowd. Klaus, who is the head of community with CrowdSec, will be taking your questions and asking them at the end. We should have plenty of time for your questions. So I'm really excited to get started. Sebastian, would you go ahead?
Sure. Thank you. Hello, everyone. So today with Hamza, we will be talking about CrowdSec and how to integrate it with Traefik and Kubernetes. So first of all, a few words about the background of CrowdSec and how it works. So why was CrowdSec created? Basically, we made a very simple observation. Today, cybersecurity is not a problem of means. If you see on this slide all the logos, you are very likely to have heard of them. They are a very big company. They have security budget in the millions of dollars, but they still get hacked. And why? Because attackers have unfair advantages. First of all, the first one is time, because you never know when a new vulnerability will be released. You can be working, you can be sleeping, you can be at the beach. The hackers do not really care about what you are doing currently if they want to try to start exploiting something new. Also, it's very easy today to try to scan the entire internet for a vulnerability. If we take, for example, Log4j, the vulnerability was released, and pretty much the same day we saw massive scanning all over the internet to try to exploit the vulnerability. And you, if you are on the defender side, you want to patch the vulnerability, but it takes time because you need to, first of all, know if you are vulnerable or not. You need to know which applications are potentially vulnerable, and it takes time to find them, and it also takes time to actually apply the patch. Another reason is the perimeter, because in the last few years, the perimeter has drastically changed. We are not anymore in the world of we have one main infrastructure protected by one firewall. Today, applications are running in multiple clouds. Anyone in your company can try to deploy a new application. Application can be running on containers, on VMs, basically wherever. You also have SaaS application nowadays. And it becomes very, very hard for defenders to have a complete view of what is happening. And the last point, but not the least, is money. Because company can invest millions of dollars in security budget to buy fancy appliances, to have big security team. But to cyber criminals, money is not really an issue because for them, it does not cost even 1% of your security budget to attack you, because they can just scan the internet, they can run botnet, they can try to exploit vulnerable machines to have more server at their disposal to attack you. And this is basically free to them. So this is why the whole strategy, like the castle strategy, so you have your firewalls, you have very sturdy walls around your infrastructure, does not really work anymore because your resources are scattered all over the internet. So the idea behind CrowdSec is to be able to provide an API over HTTP that any of your application or appliance will be able to query to assess the reputation of an IP. So is this IP good or bad? Should I let this IP access my application or not? And what we propose to build this reputation is to use the code, because everyone gets attacked. So if we can pool our knowledge onto which IP is bad or which IP is good, we can try to prevent attacks before they can even happen. And so this is what we are trying to achieve by detecting attack locally with a CrowdSec to try to build the biggest CTI network, so cyber threat intelligence network in the world. And each member of the community will be able to help defend other members of the community. And now, so a quick high-level overview of how CrowdSec work. So first of all, CrowdSec will ingest your logs. So your logs can be coming from either flat file. CrowdSec itself can act as a syslog server, so you can send logs from various servers in your infrastructure directly to CrowdSec. CrowdSec can also read logs from your containers, or it can even use some cloud data sources, such as AWS Kinesis or CloudWatch, to get the data. Once CrowdSec has read your log, it will parse them. And so parsing them means just extracting some information from the logs. It can be an IP address, a username, HTTP method, the name of the file that was requested, basically any information that is in your logs. And then CrowdSec will apply what we call scenarios on those logs to try to detect malicious behavior. So for example, malicious behavior can be credential breach for someone trying to enumerate files on your web server and so on. And those scenarios, and this is where the community aspect of CrowdSec first appears. So we, CrowdSec, provide some scenarios, but the community also provides scenarios. We have a hub where anyone can submit new parsers and scenario to allow CrowdSec to handle new application. And of course, you can also write your own scenarios. They don't have to be public because, for example, if you want to create a scenario that is really focused on one particular internal application, you can also do it as well. And when CrowdSec detects a behavior with a scenario, we'll send the information to the IPS component of CrowdSec, what we call a bouncer. So a bouncer will take a decision from CrowdSec. So for example, ban this IP for 2 hours, present a CAPTCHA to this IP for 2 hours, and will actually apply the decision. So the decision can be pretty much anything you want. So we can just be adding a new rule in your firewall to straight up block an IP. It can be directly at the web server level, say, present a CAPTCHA to the user before letting them access the website, or it can be also something, for example, targeted directly toward an user. Let's say that you have an e-commerce application and you have massive brute force issues coming from all over the world toward specific users. Well, you could use CrowdSec to detect this brute force, and instead of trying to ban the IP, because if the brute force is distributed, banning one IP will not really help you because another IP will continue the brute force. You could say, okay, so this user is being targeted, so I'm just going to update a flag in my database or whatever to say, so next time this user wants to log in, he will need to click on a confirmation email to prove that this is actually the user that wants to log in. And when you detect a local behavior, so when you block an IP, you will send this information to the community. And so every member of the community will send information about IP or attacks that they block, and we will redistribute those lists of IP to the community. So this means that you will be able to be protected from known bad IPs before they can even attack you. So CrowdSec at its core is just a behavior engine. So it will read your log, and as long as you can describe the behavior you want to do for, and obviously that your logs have any information regarding this behavior, you can detect it with CrowdSec. So you can detect like the basic attacks, so brute force, port scan, web scanning. This is very easy to detect with CrowdSec out of the box. You can also have more complex scenario, for example, to try to address layer 7 DDoS, so applicative DDoS that is coming from a lot of different IPs. Well, with CrowdSec, you can detect that and take a decision, for example, at the country or autonomous system level. And you can also detect more business-focused scenarios. Let's say that, again, you have an e-commerce website, and you are confronted with credit card stuffing. So someone trying a lot of different credit cards that maybe they bought on some shady website. Well, this is pretty easy to detect as long as your application is logging. Okay, so this user tried this credit card and did not work. Well, with CrowdSec, you can say, okay, so maybe 2 or 3 items to buy with a credit card that failed. This is maybe normal, but the same user trying to pay with maybe 20 different credit cards, you are pretty sure that this is something, maybe an attack. So you may want to take a decision and present a CAPTCHA to the user. Now for a more technical overview of the CrowdSec infrastructure. So basically, CrowdSec is API driven. Every component of CrowdSec internally uses what we call the local API, which is itself a component of CrowdSec. So first of all, we have the agent. The agent is a component that will parse your logs and apply the scenario. So this is a component that will detect the behaviors. When a behavior is detected, an alert will be generated and sent to your local API. The local API itself will turn this alert into a decision. So ban this IP for 4 hours, for example. Next, we have the bouncers that will query the local API to get the list of decisions to be able to apply them. So the bouncer can be at the application layer. So for example, here we can see that we have WordPress. It can be a bouncer that interacts with your CDN, with your local firewall, or with your reverse proxy. The local API as well will send the information to our central API to tell us that you got attacked and that you took a decision. And it will also pull the community block list, so the list of IPs that are known to attack the community. And the local API will also manage alerting because it's good to block attacks, but it's even better to know about them. So CrowdSec can also send notification to Slack. We have a generic webhook or even Elasticsearch to be notified when CrowdSec is trying to block something. And lastly, we have a CSCLI, which is a command line tool that is used to manage your CrowdSec installation. CrowdSec itself is running pretty much anywhere. So basically, any big Linux distribution, it's very likely that we provide an official package. And even if we do not provide an official package, well, CrowdSec is written in Go, so it will run anywhere. You can just manually install it. We, since very recently, we also have support for Windows Server, which is, at least from our perspective, something that is pretty uncommon for open source security software. We also run on various BSD operating system. And of course, you can also run CrowdSec in a container, in your Kubernetes cluster, or in basically any container orchestrating system. Now for the bouncer. So the bouncer are really the component that will take the decision from CrowdSec and apply them. And you can do this at multiple levels because due to the API-centric design of CrowdSec, your bouncer does not have to run on the same machine as your agent or even the same machine as the local API. And so this means that it does not have to apply the decision at the same level. For example, we have bouncers that are able to apply decision directly at the CDN level. So Cloudflare or Fastly. So you will be able to block IPs before they can even reach your infrastructure. You can obviously also block at the network level. So just adding, for example, a firewall rule into the local firewall of your server. You can also block at the web server or reverse proxy level. So this is what we'll be showcasing with Traefik later on. So here you will be able to send a 403 error, for example, or even a CAPTCHA in some situation to the user before it can actually reach your application. And you can also block IPs directly at the application level if you want. And depending on where you will block the attack, you will have different remediation available to you. Because the lower you will block the attack, well, the less thing you can do. Because, for example, at the network layer, countries or autonomy system does not really exist. You can only see IPs. But at the reverse proxy or cloud provider level, this is most likely something that you can know from which country an IP is, and you can also apply more complex remediation. For example, at the application or reverse proxy level, because you have access basically to the full HTTP request, you can display a CAPTCHA to the user instead of just blocking them. So CrowdSec is an open source software. It's MIT license, so obviously it's free to use, and it will be the case forever. Why? Because basically our plan is to build the biggest CTI network in the world. So the software for us is just a means to an end. If you look at the code, it's really straightforward. It's not that difficult to write. The difficult part is really what we do in the backend to create every decision that is sent to us by the community. And so the code being open source, you can obviously you can audit it, you can contribute to it if you find some issue or if you want more feature. And the only thing that we plan to monetize is really access to the cyber threat intelligence feed for people not participating in the community. Now, for privacy part, because so you send us information about the attacks, but you only send us metadata. Basically, your logs are never exported. They never leave your own infrastructure. The agent will read them and will basically forget about them instantly. The only thing you will send us is a timestamp of the attack, the IP that attacked you, and what kind of behavior was detected. So, for example, SSH brute force. And actually, sending us information about the attacks is completely optional. If you do not want to send us anything, you can. But if you do not send us anything, we will not send you the community block list. But if you cannot send us anything for whatever reason, it can be a compliance in your industry. It can be because you do not trust us. If you want access to the block list, well, this is something that we monetize, so you can still pay for it and be able to access it even if you do not want to share anything. And the other features that we plan to monetize are features mostly targeted to enterprise that have a huge CrowdSec fleet with a lot of instances to help them better manage their instances. So for the blocklist part, so one thing that is very important is that every IP that we redistribute to the community is time dependent, because it does not make sense to redistribute an IP to the community and keeping it in the blocklist forever, because an IP is clean one day, it gets compromised the next day, it will be compromised maybe for a few days until the admin notices that the IP has been compromised. The admin will clean the server, and then the IP will not attack anyone anymore. It will be clean again. And so this is why, naturally, if an IP is stopping attacking the community, it will be removed from the community blacklist, and each IP is refreshed every week at the maximum. So this means that if your IP gets into the community blacklist, it will stay at maximum for 1 week after you've stopped attacking any member of the community. And now, so a remark that we get quite often when we say, so we redistribute IPs from the community is, okay, so I don't want to use your software because I don't trust the other people. Maybe what will happen if they send us Cloudflare IPs and you redistribute them to me, my website will be done. And so we have exactly a system in place to prevent that. This is what we call the consensus. So basically every report made by the community will go into a database that we call Smoke. This database will have every report, the details about this report, so the IP, the timestamp, the kind of scenario, and who reported this attempt. And when we want to add new IP to the community blacklist, we will ask everyone in the community, okay, so what do you think about this IP? So every user in the community has a trust score. When you start, when you install CrowdSec for the first time, we will not trust you. Your score will be 0 because we don't know you. You never made any report, so we don't know if you will do if you will make any trustworthy report. So, and as long as you do report regularly, reports that we can confirm with other reports from the community, your score will increase slowly over time. And the more, the higher your score is, the more we will listen to what you think about this IP in the community. We also run some honeypots, so basically servers that are exposing fake services on the internet that are made to be scanned by bot. So those have multiple applications. So first of all, it helps us bootstrap the consensus system because we need a baseline to know if an IP is actually malicious or not. If an IP is detected attacking one of our honeypots, we know it's malicious because there is absolutely no reason for any kind of traffic to go to those machines. We also have some whitelist system in place. So if you send us an IP belonging to Googlebot or any CDN provider, well, first of all, we will discard your report because obviously Cloudflare will not start doing SSH brute force on the internet with their CDN range. And we will also lower your trust because this is an obviously false report. Or maybe you try to poison our block list to try to add Cloudflare IPs to try to break some website on the internet. And we also have some more advanced algorithm to try to have some kind of predictive behavior. So for example, let's imagine that you have a network range /24, and you've got maybe 50 or 60% of this range that is malicious. Well, this is highly likely that the rest of the range is also malicious. And in addition to that, before we actually send the IP to the community block list, we also have some threshold because it's pretty easy today to rent maybe 1,000 server on AWS or GCP or any big cloud provider. But it's way harder to rent thousands of servers in thousands of different hosting providers. So this is one of the conditions that a bad IP reported by the community must fulfill. It must be reported by a lot of different users that have enough trust, according to us, and those users must also be distributed all over the world, all over different hosting providers, because it gets very expensive very, very quickly for someone that will try to poison the consensus to rent server all over the world. And because we also have a time factor, so you need to contribute regularly to the community for your trust to rank, for your trust to increase. This means it will be very quick, very, very, very expensive for the attackers. And so when we take the decision to add an IP to the community block list, this is what we call the fire database. And this is the database that will be queried by your local CrowdSec instance to get the known bad IPs. And we will distribute only to you IPs that are relevant to you. So we check what kind of scenarios you have installed locally, and we will only redistribute to you IPs that are relevant for the scenario. Because if you are running a Linux server with a Traefik proxy on it, you don't really care about IPs that are only performing SMB or remote desktop brute force, because there is basically no chance that they will attack you ever. And now, so I will give the mic to Hamza for a demo of how to integrate CrowdSec with Traefik and Kubernetes.
Yes, thank you, Sebastian, and hello, everyone. So basically, for the demo, what we'll do is to see, first of all, an example of CrowdSec architecture in a Kubernetes environment. Basically, you have CrowdSec that will be installed throughout help, because we released an help chart. It installs the agent as a daemon set on each node. So here we have an example with 2 nodes. So basically, we have 2 pods that are installed in every node as a daemon set. Then the CrowdSec API in the CrowdSec namespace. Here you have the traffic ingress controller. So when a user asks for access to a web application, the traffic bouncer will start to raise some logs that are processed by the CrowdSec agents, and then processed and analyzed. And if there are bad behaviors, the CrowdSec agents will raise the alert to the CrowdSec API. And then on the next request from the bad user, the ingress controller will use the Traefik bouncer, the Traefik CrowdSec bouncer middleware, thanks to Fabien Bolloner for doing this great middleware. It will route the middleware forward auth, and then if the response is 403, the request will be denied for the user. So it's a basic example. So what we'll do now is that I will share my screen. Let's do it. So do you see my screen? Okay, thank you. So basically what we'll do is to use kind. So kind allow us to pop a Kubernetes cluster locally, because we want to do some local tests quickly. So I already popped one, only with one node because I like just for the example. Basically, I expose. So here is the configuration for kind. It's basically a simple control plane, master, mapping the port, this port with the HTTP port, and this one with the HTTPS one. So now I also need kubectl, of course, and Helm for managing charts. Now what I will do is to, of course, deploy the Traefik ingress controller. So basically I have my values. So of course we enable logs because we need them. This part is for the next steps that I will explain you. And here is the configuration. So the ingress traffic can be reachable from my host directly. So let's, as I already have my the Traefik repo, I don't need to install it, but basically I need to like do this command and then update my repo, of course, and I will like install in the namespace ingress traffic, for example. I will name it ingress traffic, and the Helm chart is Traefik, and my file values is the one I showed you. And as I don't have the namespace, I just need to create it. Here we are. So the deployment is in progress. What I will do is to watch if the pod is running, is ready. So let's wait. There is it. So now we have our ingress. What we will do is to deploy an example of a web application. For this, we have an example of a web application. It's basically in Hello World. So it's also a Helm chart that we made available in our Helm repo. Basically, it just give you a hello world with a hello world text with the 200 HTTP response. So here we will, of course, enable the ingress. And as I already have my CrowdSec repo installed with Helm, I just need to install the Helm chart of the application. So basically, I just need to do that. My repo is this one, and here is my Helm, and of course, here is my values. Okay, so now, of course, we need to have our etc host that is pointing to our domain name. So basically, if I just did something like hello world.local, I can see at this, I can see that I have a 200 within hello world. So basically the application just give me a good response. So now what we'll do is to install CrowdSec, as we saw in the example architecture example, to start process traffic logs of this application. Before doing that, what we'll do is to go to the console. So basically the console is our console that will allow us to view better our alerts, start managing our instance, etc. So let me just, I'm already connected. Here is an instance test, but before that, I need to add an instance. So to enroll my instance to the console, I need this this enrollment key. So here are my CrowdSec values. Again, it's a Helm chart that we are released also in our official Helm repo. And here we will say that we need for the agent to monitor the namespace ingress traffic we already deployed. The pod names will be ingress traffic, and we can use globing, so we can fetch all the nodes logs, and of course a program label, so our parser will fetch those logs and parse them. So here we have the CRI parser. It will parse all the CRI format logs. Then our traffic log, our traffic collection. So basically, the traffic collection is a collection is a sub. It's it embedded, sorry, parser and scenarios. So here I can show you, for example, in our hub, the traffic collection. So the traffic collection is basically the parser. So it's a YAML that parses all our logs if they are in JSON or in a CRI format. And we have also another collection, because we can embed the collection in collection. And they are all the base HTTP scenarios. So basically, we can detect the crawl non-static, probing, sensitive files, path traversal, and a lot of scenarios that can detect a lot of behaviors. Of course, we also added, and the community also is involved in this, is the HTTP CVE collection. So basically, it's a lot of known and famous CVEs that are exploited. So that's it for this collection. Let's back to our config file. And of course, we have, so basically it's the same because I didn't change my account. So the enroll key is the same. Here, I just specify that my instance name will be K8s cluster, and I will use those tags. We will see they will be useful for filtering the search, etc. On the if we have a lot of instances. So let's install CrowdSec. As I already have my CrowdSec Helm repo, I just need to Helm install CrowdSec. It's the name of the deployment. The name of the repo is CrowdSec, and my file is the one I showed you in the namespace CrowdSec. And of course, as I don't have this namespace created, I can create it like this. So now let's see. Our containers are creating. So basically the LAPI is running now. Now we are waiting for the agent to be running. That's it. And here we are. So basically what we'll do is to split here like this. And so here we will monitor logs -f CrowdSec agent. So here are the CrowdSec agent logs, pod logs. Here we can see that it added this file. So this one is the file from the node that we have. And now what we'll do is to, and of course, yeah, sorry for the, I just forgot to kill the CrowdSec LAPI, the local API, because if we want to see here, and also, yeah, I also forgot to, sorry, to show you the enrollment process. So here, as our instance is running, it asked to in my account if it can enroll. So here I can do something like that. And as you can see, the name I give it to the configuration and also my tags. So I just need to accept this. Okay, so now my instance is here, and to be able to send alerts and be visible quickly in the console, I just need to delete the pod. So the pod will be restarted, and we will have a new jute token, and we will be able to see our alerts in the console. So let's. Okay, so we deleted the LAPI pod. And as it's a deployment, it will, of course, be running again very quickly. So now let's get our agent logs. And here what we'll do is to run like in simulate an attack using Nikto. So I'm using Nikto. Basically, Nikto is just a web scanner. So here I just need to specify my web application. So hello world.local. And here we can see directly that CrowdSec, the agent, start detecting some overflows. So here we can see that we detected the HTTP probing, we detect path traversal, etc. So here we'll go to, we get a shell from the LAPI. Here we are. And we can see that we already have a decision on my IP. So basically it's my private IP because I'm as it's a local. And now if we go to our console and go to the alerts, I need to refresh. Yeah, that's it. So here is the alerts overview. So we have dashboard, we have like basic scenarios that were detected. The IP, of course, we didn't have any enrichment because it's a private IP, of course. But I will show you later how we can, an example of an account that we have with the real IPs, etc. So that's it. And yeah, so now, as you can see, if we run again the Nikto, the web attack, it will still, we are still allowed to access. So here, basically, if I recall this, I can see that I'm still on the, I can still be access to the web application, sorry. Now what we'll do is to add the traffic bouncer as a middleware in the ingress traffic controller. So now Traefik will first check if the IP is banned in CrowdSec, and then it will allow or not the request, the web request. So basically, thanks again to Fabien for his great work on the Traefik CrowdSec bouncer. We bundle it as an Helm chart, and here are the values. So basically, what I need to do first is to generate a bouncer API key. So basically, I need to go to the CrowdSec API with CSCLI, as Sebastian explained in the architecture schema. We need to use CSCLI to interact with CrowdSec environment. So here I asked to CrowdSec CSCLI to add me a bouncer. So I will call it Traefik bouncer. It gives me an API key that I need to keep it safe, of course. And then I will paste it here. And for the Traefik bouncer, I just need those values. So basically, it's the API key I just fill, and the agent host. So here it's just the service name URL. And the port, of course, of the CrowdSec API port. And after that, what I will do is that I will install the Traefik bouncer, as it's already available in the CrowdSec Helm repo. I just need to I will install it. So Helm install minus in the same namespace than used for the ingress Traefik. Traefik bouncer, I will name it. It's in the repo CrowdSec Traefik bouncer, and I will use my values I showed you previously. And here we are. So basically, we have a note that shows us that we can install, we can specify the middleware in Traefik as an ingress or as an ingress route. As you know, with the CRD, Traefik is able to do custom configuration. And also, we can specify the ingress Traefik bouncer as a global middleware. So every entry point in every router, we specify, we can add the Traefik bouncer as a global middleware. So every route we add, we have this middleware that will be enabled by default. And to do this, we will add, we will back to our Traefik values, and we will increment those, and those arguments are will allow us to have the ingress Traefik bouncer as a global middleware, and will be for the web and the web secure entry points. So here, what we'll do is to upgrade our ingress controller deployment. So it's Traefik, ingress Traefik. I need to specify this, and then our values. So here we are upgrading the ingress Traefik. So if we get the pods again, the ingress Traefik is not ready yet, but it will be soon. Let's go. Oh, that's it. Okay, nice. So now, if we try to go to the Traefik, wait, before I'm doing that, I need to get a port forward to access to the Traefik interface. We'll do something like that. Go back here, and we will see that we have our middleware that is up and running and used by these routers that are the hello world that is deployed on the web secure and the web entry points. So here, if we go back here, we can see that we have this, wait, so yeah, it's this one. The other one is for metrics. But this one, we can see that our request will be forwarded to the forward auth middleware that will ask if the IP is banned or not, and then he will follow the request to the application. So let's, as we are already banned, as you see here, let me grab it for you. We have our IP that is already banned. If we just try, it's hello world that local, we can see that, tada, we are forbidden. And we are now not able to access to the application. So to double check this, we just need to delete our IP from CrowdSec. So we will not be banned again. We performed like 9 we detect like 9 behaviors. That's why we have 9 decisions that are deleted. We only show one because to avoid duplication, etc. So here, if we ask again, we have access to our web application. So that's basically the demo. What I will show you with what you can do also with the console, the good stuff that you can do is my account didn't have like a good overview because I don't have many instances, etc. I will go to my organization. Yeah, it's Alpaca Crew. And basically in this one, I have a lot of alerts that you can see here. And we can see that, for example, we have a feature of CTI. So for example, if I want to see what's going on with this IP, I just need to click here, and here is the cyber threat intelligence feature that allow us to have more details of the activity of this IP. If this IP is aggressive, what the community said about it, the last 7 days, there are many reports or not, the activity, and also here we have the attacks in this view. And we can see that the attack detail, that this attack is specialized in C brute force. So yeah, we can also use it here. For example, I don't know, I want this IP. So I'll just go here and search for it. And we can see that this IP, we have some information about it. He did SMB brute force, C brute force also. And it's in the community block list. So this one is distributed. And we can see that it started a few days ago to be very, very aggressive. So that's it for me. So I think I can stop sharing my screen, and yeah, that's it. So if you guys have some questions, don't hesitate to put them in the QA, and I think we will start replying questions.
There are some questions here. Somebody asked, do we get the same or better protection with Traefik versus Caddy?
So basically, do you get same or better protection? I'll say it's not very dependent on the web server or the proxy that you are using. It's depending on just the logs you have, and So basically, dependent on CrowdSec, if I'm not mistaken, if CrowdSec is able to parse your caddy or traffic logs, it will detect the same behaviors and protect you at the same in the same way. And of course, Sebastian, don't hesitate to.
Yeah. Basically, what happens as long as CrowdSec knows how to parse your proxy or web server, or whatever logs, you will get the same level of protection, because internally we reprocess HTTP logs to normalize them so that any scenarios have access to the same information, and this is not linked to which web server you are using. So your web server just need to logs the HTTP code, the URL that was requested, response code, and so on. And as long as your server or proxy logs that, CrowdSec will behave the same, no matter what your reverse proxy is.
All right. How would you integrate CrowdSec with Trefik if you're using Docker or Kubernetes, Arranger, K3s, or RKE?
I think this question was asked before the demo.
Yeah, but I'm answering some of the questions. I'm saying some of the questions here because they don't get on the recording if it's just answered in the Q&A.
Yeah. So basically, you just saw how we install it throughout Trefik. You can even install it in with Docker Compose. You can install it throughout Kubernetes with the Helm charts. Even if you have your own Kubernetes YAML files, you will be able, as it's a Docker image, so you can basically install it. So yeah.
Right. Isn't it better to use a middleware plugin to detect than to read the logs? You would have all the request data and you don't need to interpret the logs.
Well, this is more of CrowdSec design, because CrowdSec is not intended to work only with Traefik. It can work with basically anything that can output logs. So we parse logs because this is what CrowdSec knows to do. If we were trying to integrate with every web server existing, it would be a nightmare. It would be a never-ending task, because we would need to write plugins for every web server in existence, which will be just a nightmare. And CrowdSec supports way more applications than just web server. It can be SSH, it can be database, and for those you cannot really hook directly into them. At least not officially. So logs are, at least for us, the better solution.
All right. Is there a chance to disregard false positive? What happens if it was already upstream to the community? Yeah,
so for false positive, so first of all, we have the consensus mechanism that I explained a bit during the first part of the presentation. But if your IP gets in the community blacklist because it was actually malicious at some point, or maybe just a false positive, but as far as I know, it never happened yet. So on our website, we just have a form where you can request a removal from the community blacklist. So obviously we'll have a look, we will discuss with you, okay, so what did you do, what step did you take to actually clean the IP, and so on. But yes, we on our end, we can remove an IP from the community blacklist. And in the meantime, on your end, you can manually delete a decision for a specific IP, even if it comes from the community blacklist.
All right. Yeah, any option for direct integration with firewalls, etc., so we can plug them at the perimeter? Somebody also asked specifically about pfSense support.
Okay, so pfSense, I think this is planned. For now, we don't have like specific bouncer, but I think some community member wrote an article how to integrate CrowdSec, because as CrowdSec is exposing everything through an API. Well, it's pretty easy to integrate basically any kind of system into it, especially more advanced firewalls that are able to automatically fetch block list. And also to simplify integration in those situations, we are currently working on a special bouncer that will basically just mirror the content of the block list you have in your CrowdSec instance. And so this means that you will be able to point just your firewall to this bouncer, and it will be able to automatically fetch the block list without your firewall, without needing for your firewall to know to interact, to know how to interact with the CrowdSec API. It will be just a straight up HTTP with optional authentication, but really configuration of your firewall, you just tell it, okay, so the block list is here and it should work automatically.
All right. Pretty sure you will cover this, but to make sure it's covered, how does CrowdSec protect itself and everyone participating to the community from being used as an attack vector from bad members participating to the community?
Okay, so again, this
already,
is again, this is a consensus system. So basically, every user in the community has a trust score that change over time depending on how often you report. If we are able to confirm your report with other report from the community, and if we do not trust you, well, basically your report will be pretty much ignored, and you have no chance of making it into the community block list. And because we have some threshold on how much report we need for an IP before sending it to the community block list, this would mean that if you want to actually try to send a false positive or to poison the consensus, you will need maybe hundreds and hundreds of servers all over the world participating in the network for weeks or months and sending actual real bad IP that we are able to confirm with other members of the community. So this is basically the idea. So the idea is really to make it extremely expensive for an attacker to just add one IP to the community block list.
Right. Is the CrowdSec console GDPR compliant?
Yeah, I think it's already replied by Daria. So yeah. Is it?
All right. Is the honeypot open source too? I guess they're referring to our own internal honeypot.
Yeah, so currently no, they are not, but basically our honeypots are just running CrowdSec and with some custom scenarios. That's pretty much it. We do plan maybe at some point in the future open sourcing everything, but it's not the case currently because this is really designed for internal use, so this is not really easy to deploy for anyone basically except us. So it will need a lot of work for it to become something that will be comfortable releasing, because we don't really want to release something that is cumbersome or to use or just straight up hard to deploy.
No, but I guess at some point people can offer to host honeypots as well, if they want to send us signals or help us in that regard.
Yeah, and for that you can just run a CrowdSec and have a Nginx server or whatever, and you will be able to send signals without doing much.
Are there any performance limitation with CrowdSec? What amount of DDoS attack can CrowdSec withstand?
So performance, so the agent itself is pretty lightweight. Obviously, it will vary depending on how much logs you are passing. If you are passing 10,000 logs per second, obviously, CrowdSec the agent will need a bit of CPU to actually parse the logs. But other than that, in let's say most standard use case, it's pretty much invisible on your system. The agent will take maybe at most 100 or 150 megabytes of RAM and a negligible amount of CPU.
All right. Will you guys be deploying a dark mode for the console?
Yeah, it's planned. It will be available maybe soon because we already also asked for it internally. So yeah. Don't worry.
And a lot of other users have been asked for it
Yeah.
for I don't know how long.
And for the notification system, so basically in the CrowdSec agent, you can already configure the CrowdSec to, as Sebastian explained, you can already configure CrowdSec to send alerts to Slack, I don't know, HTTP or to Elasticsearch or whatever. It's already supported.
Yeah. It's a Traefik pilot plugin for CrowdSec planned.
I think it's not yet, but if we have some interest and needs on that, of course, don't hesitate to open an issue on the project and explain your needs. Of course, we'll dig into it, and if needed, we will do it.
Yeah, or do like Fabian, right? Do it yourself.
Yeah, or
considering not yet supported firewalls, is there a way I can use CrowdSec to trigger and script action on a bouncer? That is more. I guess you already answered that.
So yeah, there with the yet to be actually released mirror bouncer, or we also have what we call the custom bouncer that will get the decision from your CrowdSec local API, and you will be able to call. You are able to call a custom script with those IP parameters. So then you can just do whatever you want with it. As long as your firewall has some kind of API for you to be able to add the IPs, it should be doable.
All right. Do you have any charts of traffic performance with and without CrowdSec?
With Traefik, no. Correct me, Sebastian, if I'm wrong, but without Traefik, we don't have any performance charts. But we already have a blog post, and I think it's every web server or proxy server had the same reaction if you like bother it a lot with the how we say the background noise of the internet. So we basically released the blog post on the consequences of installing CrowdSec with CrowdSec and without CrowdSec, and you can see the charts in the blog post. So maybe if I try to find it and send it to answer you.
Yeah, and in the case of the Traefik bouncer, basically what the bouncer will do will be to query the local API for each request. And I think it has some kind of cache to avoid querying the API for the same IPs again and again. But basically the local API will take just a few milliseconds to give you okay or not okay. So you will just be, this is basically the overhead you will be adding to the response time, just the time for CrowdSec to answer the decision.
Yep. Does CrowdSec support the deployment to ARM?
Yeah.
Yes.
That was easy. What action can Traefik do when the IP is detected by CrowdSec?
So the Traefik bouncer, because it uses forward out middleware, is only able to return a 403. To be able to, at least I think, and to be able to have a more complex response, we will need to write an actual CrowdSec Traefik plugin. This is something that we had a look in the past. But it was a bit more difficult than expected due to the way Traefik plugin works. I'm not going to go into too many technical details, but basically, at least it was the case maybe 6 or 7 months ago. It would have required some change both in CrowdSec and Traefik for it to be able to work.
Hundreds of organization PCs work behind net on a single external IP. One P sends requests which lead to an IP being blocked. So blocking the IP will lead to blocking all of the organization's PCs from reaching the service for 1 week as maximum, right?
So yeah, basically, actually 1 week as long as the IP stops attacking the community. And yeah, and that is a bit of a tough case to handle because you have maybe hundreds of different computers behind a single IP. But this is basically the risk with having shared IPs because you are not the only one using it. If someone is doing bad stuff from the same IP, well, you are some kind of collateral damage, and unfortunately, there is not much you can do about it.
How long time does it take for a new attack type to be publicated globally?
Depends on how long we need to write the scenario. So basically, for example, with the Log4j, I think we published a scenario the same day as it was released. And after that, it's just a matter of people actually installing this scenario. But it can be pretty much maybe a few hours at most if this is a big enough and important vulnerability. So we write the scenario, we publish it, can be very fast, and then people just need to install it.
Yeah, and you can even like with CSCLI super easily just doing CSCLI update, and you will have or update the collection, and you will have the new scenario. If it's embedded, of course, in the HTTP CV, for example, and you already have it installed, you just have to update the collection and reload CrowdSec, and here you are already protected against it, and you can detect those attacks.
And obviously, it will take maybe a few hours on top of that for the community to start reporting IP. And basically, we are pretty much adding in real time IPs to the community block list. So as long it will just need the time for the various threshold to be met, and the IP will be starting to be added to the block list.
Yeah. All right. How often does my local installation pull new IPs, and what SLA has your server?
So it will pull new IPs every 2 hours, and because currently actually we are still working on the paid offering, so we do not have any SLA. I have no idea what they will be in the paid offering, but even if the community blacklist is down for whatever reason, well, it won't impact your CrowdSec installation in itself. CrowdSec won't crash or anything. It will just tell you, okay, so I was not able to pull the community blacklist, and that's it. Everything will still work. You will still able to block malicious behavior locally. Just you won't get any new IP, and you won't be able to send them. But due to our infrastructure design, this is something that is very, very, very unlikely to happen. It can happen, obviously, but this is very unlikely.
Can CrowdSec be used to filter outbound communications, prevent connection to malicious targets or CNC hosts?
So currently, yes and no. The IP we distribute in the community block list are IPs that are attacking other servers. And so in most cases, IP used to try to exploit vulnerabilities and command and control server IPs are different because you don't want your C2 to be taken down because you try to do some brute force somewhere. So no, currently we do not have IPs or domain that are used for C2 or for exfiltrating data, but I think this is something that we would like to do in the future. But for now, mostly for IPs that attacks you.
Do I need a cron job to update the hub update, and how does this happen in Kubernetes?
Basically, what you need to do, we need a cron job to update if you don't want to do it manually, and it's actually a good feedback. Thanks for that. And I think it's something that can be inserted in our Helm issues. So basically, we will be able to in the Helm. The idea I have now is to have in the Helm chart a cron job or scheduled job in Kubernetes that will be controlled with a cron rule from the values, and those values will be customizable by the user. So basically, he will decide if every hour or every day he will update the help. So we don't have it yet, but don't hesitate to open an issue or yeah.
All right. How will the Traefik plugin react if the API is not responding for whatever reason? Is there some timeout setting that can be defined?
Honestly, I didn't dig in the Traefik plugin. Let me find if depend on if the Traefik CrowdSec plugin bouncer is able to has this feature. Sorry.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Fabian just left, so we can't.
Yeah. Let me find the configuration. I think, yeah, you don't have this. Yeah, maybe if you ask in
So someone responded in the chat.
Okay.
So basically, the forward middleware would deny access when it can't reach the service.
Yeah. So thank you for.
Is there a way to subscribe to new scenarios, or should I schedule a daily update or something like that?
No, so new scenarios, you will need to install them manually. So yeah, you just need to install it. So we have a Twitter account, so that is not very active, but where we try to publish new scenario that are published to the hub. Or you can just watch the GitHub repository, because basically the hub is just a front end for the GitHub repository. So you can just have a look at what is merged, and so you can know if there is something that you will need to, or you would want to install, or something that you will need to just update.
Yep. Traefik forward middleware was not able to detect Cloudflare's CF connecting IP for a long time. So we changed it in a cloned repo of Traefik. Is it implemented now?
So I think this is more of a Traefik question. So
yeah,
probably not the right person to ask.
Exactly. True. Sorry. It's CrowdSec only. Shit, I don't want to say that. Does CSCLI pull config every day?
I think it's the same question about pulling config, scenarios, etc.
Sure.
Actually, I think it was a bit different. It was more like,
maybe.
because CrowdSec will automatically, with the wizard, detect services that are running. But no, currently you need to, after the initial setup, you will need to update the CrowdSec configuration yourself, or to run the wizard again. But in some cases, this is not really recommended for it to detect the new service. But the safest bet will be to manually update the CrowdSec configuration.
Would CrowdSec protect email service like SMTP and IMAP, not only to detect SMTP auth attacks, lookup IP reputation from CrowdSec database?
Okay. So currently this is not possible, but in the future we plan to have an API. Actually, this is possible, but you will need to probably write some custom code, because what you could do would be for your SMTP server to query your local API to know if this IP is bad or not, and then do whatever you want. So this would be basically a bouncer for your mail server. So we do not have anything ourselves. I don't think anyone in the committee wrote something like this, but this should be completely doable.
Yes. Can we get the Discord alert when a new config collection bouncer gets published? I guess that's partial for me, because if there's a feed somewhere that shows it, then we can easily put it into the Discord.
Yeah, definitely. This is just some configuration stuff on our
Yeah.
on our end should be possible, and that's actually quite a good idea, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, there is a GitHub feed somewhere whenever something is, I don't know, released or something, but that's not as much as we'd. That's not very much, to be honest. Should we continue with the questions, or there were a few more?
I think that because we're 20 minutes past time, we should probably invite people to ask questions in the CrowdSec Discord or in the Traefik community forum.
Yeah. CrowdSec Discord is available at discord.gg/CrowdSec, and if you can't remember the address, it's in the chat, or you can find it on crowdsec.net as well. And
Absolutely.
we'll be happy to help you out.
And you can always reach the community Discord at community.traefik.io, where you can ask all kinds of questions there as well. Thank you, everybody, for coming. This was a really wonderful experience, and we hope to see you at the next one.
Yep. Thanks a lot, guys.
See you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.